The city was quiet the morning Ethan left the company. His mind was clear, almost peaceful, but a part of him still felt unfinished. He had walked away from his revenge, but the story between him and Lily didn't feel over. There were words left unspoken, wounds left open. He needed to face her one last time, not to destroy her, but to understand why she had done it. For days he tried to ignore the thought. He busied himself with travel plans, new job offers, anything to distract his mind. But every time he saw her name in an article or her face on a billboard, something inside him stirred. He had spent years building a plan around her, and now that it was gone, there was an emptiness he couldn't explain. One evening, as he sat in a small cafe near his apartment, he heard two businessmen talking at the next table. "Miller Logistics is in trouble," one of them said. "The investors are pulling back. Their numbers are slipping." Ethan looked up. He felt a strange mix of surprise and unease. He hadn't done anything, but it seemed his earlier actions had left ripples. The whispers he'd started months ago had taken on a life of their own. Even without his help, her company was slowly cracking under pressure. That night, he couldn't sleep. Guilt crept in like a slow fog. He had tried to stop himself from seeking revenge, yet it was already happening. People around Lily were starting to doubt her, the same way his parents once doubted him. He realized then that revenge didn't always need a hand. It grew on its own once planted. And he had planted the seed. The next morning, he made a decision. He would see her face to face, not as an enemy or a stranger, but as a brother who needed the truth. When he arrived at the Miller Logistics building, security guards didn't recognize him anymore. He looked different, now older, confident. He asked for an appointment with Lily and waited in the lobby, watching employees rush around, their faces tight with stress. The company that once felt untouchable now had cracks everywhere. After half an hour, he was escorted to her office. The room was large, but tense papers stacked in piles, phone lines blinking, air heavy with worry. Lily looked up from her desk, her eyes widening slightly when she saw him. "Ethan," she said softly. He nodded. "So you do remember me?" For a moment, silence filled the room. Then she gestured to the chair across from her. "Sit, please." He didn't sit. "I just came to ask one thing." "Why?" Lily leaned back, her calm mask faltering. "Why? What?" "Why you blamed me," he said. "Why you let them believe I was the reason Dad's business fell apart. You knew the truth. You used my laptop. You watched me lose everything, and you said nothing. Why?" She exhaled slowly, eyes drifting to the window. "You think it was easy for me?" "It looked pretty easy from where I was standing," Ethan said quietly. Lily hesitated, then spoke, her voice lower now. "Dad was going to lose everything. I found out about the missing funds days before anyone else. I tried to fix it, but when I couldn't, I panicked. You were already working on the report, and she stopped. It was easier to blame you. They would forgive me. They never forgave you for anything. I thought I could handle it later, make things right." "But you didn't," Ethan said. "I couldn't," she whispered. "By the time I realized what I'd done, you were gone. And after that, admitting the truth would have destroyed everything. The company, our family, me." Ethan stared at her, his hands trembling slightly. She looked smaller than he remembered, tired, cornered. "You've built your whole life on a lie," he said. She looked down. "I know." The air between them was thick with everything they'd never said. For years, Ethan had dreamed of this moment, making her confess, watching her world fall apart. But now that it was here, the victory felt hollow. He looked around her office awards, framed photos, success built on guilt. "You could fix this," he said. "You could tell them the truth." She shook her head. "It's too late. People trust me now. If I admit it, everything collapses. Dad's legacy dies with it. I can't." Ethan felt the anger rise again, hot and sharp. "You mean you won't?" Lily met his gaze, her voice shaking. "You want to ruin me? Go ahead, tell them. You'll finally get your revenge. But it won't make you happy. You think I sleep at night? You think I don't see your face every time I close my eyes? Her voice cracked. "I've lived with that guilt for years, Ethan. You don't have to punish me. I already did it myself." He didn't know what to say. The room felt heavy, the sound of rain starting against the windows. He realized she was right about one thing. She wasn't the same girl who had betrayed him. She was broken too, trapped inside the very image she'd built to survive. He took a deep breath and stepped closer to the desk. "You still have a choice," he said quietly. "Do the right thing before it's too late." She looked up at him, tears forming but never falling. "And what about you? Will that fix what I did to you?" He shook his head. "No, but it might fix something in you." He turned to leave. She didn't stop him as he reached the door. She said softly, "I never hated you, Ethan. I just wanted to be seen." He paused, hand on the doorknob. "So did I." When he walked out of the building, the rain had stopped. The city lights shimmered against the wet pavement. He didn't feel angry anymore, just strangely free. For the first time in his life, he'd faced the person who broke him and walked away without becoming her. Over the next few weeks, he heard the news. Lily had stepped down as CEO. She announced that she needed time to focus on personal matters. Rumors spread, but she never explained. Investors panicked for a while, but the company survived. She disappeared from the headlines. Her name slowly fading from the spotlight she had once lived for. Ethan didn't reach out. He didn't need to. Her silence said enough. Months later, he received a letter in the mail. It had no return address, but he recognized the handwriting instantly. "Ethan," he told them the truth. "Everything you were right. It's never too late to fix things. I don't know what comes next, but I feel lighter for the first time in years. I'm sorry for what I took from you. I hope someday you'll find peace." Lily, he folded the letter carefully and placed it in his drawer. He didn't cry. He didn't smile. He just sat there, breathing quietly, feeling the strange calm of closure. Ethan never went back to the past again. He moved to a new city, started a small business of his own, something simple but honest. He lived quietly, away from fame, away from the hunger for approval. He had spent too many years chasing things that didn't matter. One night, as he walked along the waterfront, watching the city lights dance on the waves, he thought about everything that had happened, the lies, the anger, the years lost to revenge. It had taken him half his life to learn the truth, that revenge doesn't heal pain, it feeds it. That justice built on bitterness isn't justice at all. He looked at the sky, breathed deeply, and smiled, a real one this time. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. Forgiving didn't mean forgetting. It meant freeing himself from the story that had controlled him as he walked away. The city behind him glowed brighter, like a new beginning. The rain started again, soft and warm, but this time he didn't run from it. He lifted his face to the sky, closed his eyes, and let it wash over him. He had changed his life not through revenge, but through release. And for the first time in forever, Ethan Miller was finally at peace. 5 years later, Ethan Miller was no longer the lost boy who had walked into the rain that night. He had learned to survive without anyone's approval. He had built himself from nothing, one piece at a time. The city he now lived in didn't care about his past. And that was exactly what he needed. He worked hard, taking whatever job he could find, loading docks, night security, delivery shifts, anything that paid enough to keep him moving forward. But he never stayed in one place for too long. Every few months, he switched jobs, cities, and names. He was patient. He wasn't running anymore. He was learning. While others wasted time complaining about life, Ethan studied people. He watched how power worked, how trust was built, used, and broken. He learned how to read expressions, how to speak just enough, how to make people believe what he wanted them to believe. What his sister had done to him years ago was cruel. But it had taught him something valuable. Manipulation wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was polite, quiet, visible. That knowledge became his weapon. By his 30th birthday, Ethan had a new identity and a new life. He worked in a mid-sized tech consulting firm under the name Ethan Gray. He wasn't rich, but he was respected, trusted, and rising fast. The same calm confidence that once belonged to Lily now lived in him, but his wasn't an act. His was built from pain, precision, and patience. One evening, as he scrolled through business news, a familiar face froze him mid-sip of coffee. Lily, her name was everywhere. Lily Miller, CEO of Miller Logistics Group, the young woman redefining family business. He stared at the screen. His sister's company, the same one their father had once run, was now hers. His parents had retired, passing everything to her. She had become exactly what she always wanted: successful, admired, untouchable. The article quoted her, "Integrity is the foundation of leadership." Ethan almost laughed. He knew the truth. Integrity was the first thing she had thrown away that night. As the city lights flickered outside his window, Ethan made a decision. He wouldn't confront her. He wouldn't expose her past. That would be too easy. He would do what she did to him, slowly, quietly, without warning. He would take everything she valued. His plan started small. He spent months gathering information. Miller Logistics was expanding, partnering with several tech firms for digital upgrades. Ethan used his company's reputation to approach them. Within weeks, he was in meetings with their executives, Lily's executives. When she entered the conference room for the first time, she didn't recognize him. Not right away. He had changed his face, sharper, hair shorter, voice steadier. He stood up, offered a handshake, and introduced himself. Ethan Gray, technology consultant. Lily smiled politely. "Pleasure to meet you." The irony almost made him laugh, but he stayed calm. As the weeks passed, their paths crossed again and again. She was professional, composed, charming to everyone. But Ethan could see the cracks beneath the perfection. The pressure of running the company had hardened her. The same control she once used to destroy him was now her prison. She couldn't afford to fail, not even once. Ethan began his quiet work. He studied her team, her investors, her board. He learned their fears, their habits, their ambitions. He didn't spread lies he didn't need to. He simply revealed small truths at the right moments, planting seeds of doubt and distrust. A misplaced email here, a concerned conversation there, a subtle reminder that not everyone agreed with Lily's leadership decisions. It was enough to shift the balance. Every action was deliberate. Precise, invisible dot. At night, Ethan lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Sometimes he felt a strange guilt, a whisper of the boy he once was, the one who only wanted peace. But then he remembered the rain, the lies, the humiliation of being cast out. And that guilt vanished. He wasn't doing this out of hatred. He was restoring balance. Weeks turned into months. The company's investors began to question Lily's choices. Minor conflicts appeared between her and her team. Ethan didn't cause those problems, but he made sure they grew roots. He simply guided the chaos. One afternoon after a meeting, Lily asked him to stay back. Her tone was softer than usual. "You're good at reading people, Ethan," she said. "You see things others don't. How do you do that?" He smiled slightly. "Experience." For a moment, their eyes met, and something flickered in hers: confusion, maybe recognition. But it passed. The conversation left him uneasy. Beneath his control, beneath the satisfaction of watching her world wobble, something unexpected was growing: empathy. He noticed how she looked tired, how her smile didn't reach her eyes anymore. She was fighting battles of her own, though no one could see it. Still, he reminded himself she had made her choices. Then came the turning point. Ethan uncovered something an old cover-up Lily had been part of, years before, related to the same financial scandal that had ruined his life. If he revealed it, her company would crumble overnight. The documents were stored deep in her private server, but he found them. He had everything: emails, financial transfers, dates, signatures. As he stared at the files, his heart raced. It was all there. Proof that he had been innocent. Proof that she had taken everything from him. He imagined the headlines: CEO exposed in decade-old fraud scandal. He could see it clearly: her downfall, her silence, her parents' shame. The same isolation he had once felt, it would be justice. He saved the files on a flash drive and placed it on his desk. One click, one email, and it would all be over. But that night, sleep wouldn't come. His mind kept drifting to her face during meetings, tired, guarded, uncertain. He remembered how she once looked as a child sitting beside him, laughing over shared secrets before life turned them into enemies. Was she really his enemy? Or just a reflection of the same broken family that had shaped them both? Ethan sat at his desk until dawn, the city lights fading behind him. He opened the flash drive, his finger hovering over the mouse. His heart pounded, not with anger, but confusion. Revenge was supposed to make him feel strong. Instead, he felt trapped like the moment before a fall. He remembered something his father used to say. Before everything went wrong, control isn't about winning. It's about knowing when to stop. Maybe his father never lived by those words, but Ethan could. He unplugged the flash drive, held it for a long time, then dropped it into the trash. The sound was quiet but final. When he went to work the next day, Lily greeted him with her usual polite smile. She had no idea how close she had come to losing everything. He watched her for a moment, then smiled back, not out of friendship, but release. For the first time in years, the weight on his chest was gone. He realized that revenge didn't free him. It kept him chained to the past. By letting go, he wasn't forgiving her, he was saving himself. Later that evening, he packed up his desk and walked out without saying goodbye. The city air was cool, calm, alive. He didn't know where he was going next, but for the first time, he didn't need a plan. The boy who had once been thrown into the rain had finally stopped running as he walked down the street. He looked up at the skyline glowing in gold light and smiled quietly to himself. He had wanted justice, but what he found instead was peace. And in that quiet moment, Ethan realized that sometimes the truest revenge isn't destruction, it's freedom. The rain fell hard that afternoon, hammering against the old windows of the Miller house. Ethan stood in the narrow hallway, his hands clenched at his sides, trying not to listen, but it was impossible to block out their voices. His mother's tone was sharp, slicing through the air like glass. His father's deeper voice followed, tired but certain, like a verdict already decided. "Why can't you be more like your sister, Ethan?" His mother said. "Lily never causes these problems." Ethan swallowed hard. The words were so familiar that they barely hurt anymore, but this time, something inside him shifted. He looked toward the living room. His sister Lily sat on the couch, back straight, her face calm and unreadable. She didn't defend him. She never did. She didn't have to. Their parents believed her without question. No matter what the situation was, Ethan had tried all his life to make them proud, good grades. Extra work, staying out of trouble, but it never mattered. Lily's smallest achievement was celebrated like gold, while his efforts vanished like smoke. If she forgot to lock the door, it was an honest mistake. If he did, it was carelessness. Every conversation ended with the same tone of disappointment, as if he were a burden they were forced to tolerate. He used to think he could fix it. Maybe if he worked harder, spoke softer, stayed invisible. But no matter what he did, Lily's shadow always stretched longer. That day, the argument wasn't about school or chores, it was about the family business. Their father owned a small logistics company, something he had built over 20 years. Recently, money had gone missing from the accounts. Ethan worked part-time there, helping with reports and computer systems. He had stayed late nights, double-checking files, trying to prove he could handle real responsibility. But when the issue came to light, Lily was the one who found the mistake. She had walked into the office, laptop in hand, calm as ever. "Dad," she said gently, "I think I know what happened. I checked Ethan's files. There are inconsistencies." That was it. No discussion. No chance for him to explain that she had borrowed his laptop days before, that she had the password, that she knew where every file was stored. His father's face had hardened instantly. "You've embarrassed this family, Ethan. How could you be so careless?" He tried to speak, to explain, but the more he talked, the guiltier he sounded. His mother covered her mouth, shaking her head in quiet disbelief. Lily stood beside them, her hand on their father's shoulder. It's a perfect picture of concern. "Dad, maybe he didn't mean to," she said softly. "Maybe he was just overwhelmed." Her words sounded kind, but her eyes never met his. That night, everything changed. They told him to leave until he figured things out. His father's voice was cold, final. "You can't stay here and drag this family down. When you learn to take responsibility, we'll talk." Ethan packed in silence. He took only what fit in a single bag: some clothes, a few books, his old laptop. Lily appeared in the doorway as he zipped the bag shut. "I'm sorry it turned out this way," she said quietly. "I tried to make them understand, but you know how Dad is." He stared at her. "You set me up," he said, his voice low. Her face didn't change. "You're being dramatic. I was just trying to fix your mistake." Ethan's chest tightened. He wanted to shout, to make her admit it, but what was the point? His parents were already convinced. When he stepped outside, the rain was falling harder than before. He stood on the sidewalk, soaked, staring at the house that had never really felt like home. Through the window, he could see Lily's silhouette beside their parents. Warm light, laughter, safety, all the things that were never his. He walked away without looking back. For the first few days, he slept in his car, parked behind a closed gas station. He had nowhere else to go. His friends stopped calling his parents, must have told everyone what happened. Shame clung to him like a second skin. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard his father's words again. "You've embarrassed this family." But underneath the humiliation, something else was growing: a cold, steady clarity. He replayed the memory of Lily's calm face, her gentle tone, the way she'd turned their parents against him with a few quiet words. She had planned it, not out of hate, but control. She always wanted to be the best, the favorite, the one who shined brightest. And now she had the stage all to herself. Ethan realized something that night as he watched the rain hit the windshield. He had spent his whole life trying to prove his worth to people who had already made up their minds. Every effort, every apology, every desperate act for approval, which was all wasted. He whispered to himself, "No more." The next morning, he left the city. He sold his car, took a train to another state, and started over. He worked wherever he could: cafes, warehouses, late-night shifts, saving every dollar. At first, the pain drove him. But as time passed, it became focus, determination, a quiet promise that one day he'd return, not as the failure they threw away, but as someone they couldn't ignore. Still, the betrayal lingered like a wound that refused to close. Whenever he saw someone who looked like Lily, a confident smile, perfect posture, his chest tightened. He wondered if she ever thought about what she'd done. Did she feel guilt? Or was he just a forgotten chapter in her success story? Ethan didn't hate her. Not exactly. Hate was loud, and he didn't have the energy for it anymore. What he felt was sharper, more dangerous: than unspoken need for balance. To make her understand what it felt like to lose everything without reason. To make them all understand years later. When news reached him that Lily had taken over their father's company, the old pain resurfaced. She was on magazine covers, giving interviews, speaking about integrity and family values. The irony made him laugh. He watched one of her interviews online late one night. She spoke confidently, smiling under the studio lights. The same voice that once whispered lies now inspired thousands. "Success," she said, "is built on trust and hard work." Ethan stared at the screen for a long time, his jaw tight. The betrayal had started with words. Maybe the reckoning would too. He closed his laptop slowly. The decision formed in his mind like a steady flame. He didn't know how, not yet, but he knew what he had to do. He would come back. Not to beg for forgiveness or to prove his innocence. He would come back to take control of his story. To take back what was stolen from him, not with rage, but with precision, as he stood by the window looking out at the dark sky. Lightning flashed in the distance, lighting up his reflection in the glass. His face looked older now, harder. The rain fell just like it had that night years ago, but this time it didn't feel like defeat. It felt like a beginning. Ethan whispered to himself again, the words calm but certain. This time, they'll remember me. And somewhere deep inside, he smiled for the first time in years, not because he was happy, but because he finally had something stronger than pain. He had purpose. And that purpose was the beginning of everything that would come next.